Hey guys, I'm gonna show you how I want to sculpt Chloe's extensions today. So I'm gonna invite her to stand up. What I like to do is lock the chair so that it's not going to move. And I'll also ask her to just kind of gently place her hands on the chair so that she's stabilized and she's not going to sway in place. Okay. Next, what I like to do is spin the cape because I don't want the crisscross of the back of the cape to interfere with my sectioning. So I'm going to do that and bring all of her hair to the back. So cutting extensions is very much like an ice sculpture. It's a very exterior thing. We're going to be basically etching away at the exterior to create a shape. You don't want to approach cutting extensions the same way that you would cutting a normal natural head of hair. So what I'm going to do on Chloe is subsection out from the ears forward and leave that for later. And we're going to just focus on the back of her hair. So on Chloe, our haircut's gonna be pretty simple. This is already blending pretty well on her, but I do wanna give her some texture and movement so that when we curl her later, she's got a lot of layers that you'll be able to see. So for her first section of her cut, I'm going to just take about 1 inch here in the middle. And I'm going to hold this section all the way out so that I can see what's happening within the section. So we do have 3 rows living within the section. So we've got our third, our second, and our first. And so as we're cutting this, we're going to be approaching each row individually. So don't take too big of a section. You don't want to overwhelm yourself. You just want to take it a little bit at a time. So what I'm going to do first is I'm basically going to visualize that her length is point A and that the ends of the extension is point C. And all I'm doing is just creating a connection between the two. So I'm going to comb this out and just very, very gently just etch away at that exterior. Notice how I am just doing a very, very smooth motion like this. I'm not, sliding through the hair. I'm just doing a very small motion that's very controlled. That way I'm moving slowly through so that I'm not actually cutting off point C. So the very top row has been connected. I'm going to now move on to the second row and connect that. So I can see within here, her natural length is living about here. I'm going to just connect the dots. Easy does it. Okay. That's connected, so now we're going to be looking at that bottom row, which is row number 1. And feel free, depending on how many rows you have, to just kind of move it to the side if it's kind of draping in the way of where you're working. So we have that point A, point C, and we're just going to connect it. Very slowly. Remember, we do not want to cut off point C, so just let that drop out at the very end. So that first section is done. And now what we're going to do is just take a little bit of that section and carry it with us over to the right. Same thing, point A, just very, very carefully connecting. Moving on to that second row. Slow and steady. Third row. You can also look for a guide, the guide being her natural hair. It's about there, so wherever that drops out, you'll just carry on through. So we're halfway through the back. And all this is doing is just giving her some movement. So this is going to eliminate some bulk within the hair as well. Moving on to this last section on this side. Remember, we're leaving the ears forward alone until later. Looking for that top layer of her hair and just gliding through. Top row's done. Moving on to the second. We have a little bit more length on this one. So you want to approach each row differently. Don't want to just layer the top through the bottom and then you've got a bunch of really long, heavy pieces of extensions underneath. So you want to layer them individually, just like that. Notice how we're putting in the layers first. This is really important so that you're not being held to a certain length when you're with your client. So a lot of the time what I will tell my client is we're going to put in the shape and then we'll work together to establish the length, ensuring her that she's going to get the most natural looking result possible, but I'm not going to compromise the naturalness of it for her wanting to have 22 to 24 inch hair. Moving on to the left, sectioning that out. Looking for that point A, so we're ending about there, so I'm just gonna connect. Top row is complete. Moving on to that middle row. Point A is now here. Just little motions, you guys. Third row in the nape. Don't be afraid to check for your guide. Measure twice, cut once. It's really good advice when it comes to cutting extensions. Can't put it back on. Last section over here. Now remember, the greater the transformation, the longer the haircut will probably take you. So pro tip would be to give yourself your full haircut time when you're cutting extensions. So just kind of build those different services into your time frame. Second row is complete. Moving on to the very corner of that third row. Just like that. So as you're cutting the extensions, you're just going to be getting little slivers of hair. So this is just, you can actually see it within my hand. It's going from short to longer to longest. So the back of her haircut is complete. What I'm now going to do is have her turn around and face me. And I'm going to spin that cape around. I love our capes because they are really, really large and they cover the whole body. They also have these lines here on them, which I like because I can use them as a reference point when I'm cutting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm checking myself in the mirror behind her and just bringing all of her hair forward. And I'm basically just distributing about half of it on one side and the other half on the other. And I'm now going to do her face frame. So when I do this, I like to have her just turn her head this way, and I will take that section of hair from the ears forward that we reserved for later. I'm gonna bring that forward, and I'm going to approach this the same way as I did before. Thinking of this as point A, thinking of her ends as point C. So wherever her hair drops out, that's going to connect the starting point all the way through there. Easy does it. This should be a pretty steep angle as you're cutting. And notice how it just took out a sliver of hair. And the length is going from shorter to longer to longest. So that over direction created that opening to where I could carve out that face frame. So the face frame is complete on this side. We're gonna do it on the other side. And then what I'll do is layer these corners for her and have you turn this way. So just the ears forward. This is going to be point A, so that drops out about there. So I'm gonna come right in and just ever so slightly open, close, like so. And that creates that really beautiful shape around her face. I'm gonna have her face forward now. I'm going to do one section on either side to create layers. Now, this time we don't have a third row living within this section. The third row is in the nape. So we've got 2 rows that we need to create some connection with. And so that's going to be row 2 and row 3. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. So right here is her natural length, and that's going to be point A. Point C is down here. We're just gonna come right in and just create a connection. Her top row has been connected. Now what we're going to do is approach that middle row and do the same approach. Just like that. So now she's got some movement living within her hair. I'm gonna have her turn a little bit. I'm gonna do this other side. Remember, ears back has been done. We're just doing this section right here. This again is containing 2 rows of hair. Where that drops out, we're gonna create a connection. Looking for that second row, just a little bit in there. Just like that. So what I'm gonna do now is bring all of her hair forward. Remember, we've just been putting in the shape. We haven't established the final length yet. Her and I are gonna establish that together. And the goal is to give your client the most natural looking result. But before I move on to cutting the length, I wanna now address layering the underneath. So earlier I mentioned not to cut through to point C. The reason why is because we reserve that to be able to create some interest pieces under here that will give her some movement whenever she wears her hair straight. So what I'm going to do is just wherever I see her hair ending, I'm going to just pick up a strand and just create some little layers for her. This gives your extensions a very natural looking result, but it also ensures that she's not going to ever look like she has extensions. This will take your extension installs to the next level by doing this little step. So just giving her a few pieces. I usually do about 3 little interest pieces underneath. Just like that. Same thing over here. Just makes it more believable. And all of this is coming from that 3rd row that's under there. One more. You can also, depending on your preference of how much layer you're wanting to see within your client, choose to do some interest pieces on the exterior of her top row. However, I don't really feel like she needs it. It looks pretty good. One thing you could also do as well, especially on your clients, is just clean up their little face frame area of their natural hair. And you can do that just by surface cutting, just kind of cutting any little pieces that have split ends. It won't draw so much attention to those shorter bits if they are a little damaged. So now I'm going to establish the length. What I like to do with my clients is just have them pick a point of reference. So I might tell them to look at my nose or look at my wrist or something like that, just to give them something to focus on. A lot of the time, wherever your eyes go, your head will start to follow. So I like to try to give them a point of reference so that they are not moving their head as I'm trying to establish the length. So my goal for her is to leave her hair as long as possible. It's blending really, really well, so I'm really just going to kind of skim along the bottom and take very minimal length off. So I'm going to look for the strongest point in the hair, which to me is going to kind of be somewhere in between my fingers and down here. I don't want to leave her length so sparse in through here. I want it to look strong. So I'm just going to point cut across. Just like that. I don't ever like cutting just straight across on my client's hair. I feel like it's a little too harsh. I love that light and airy look when the ends are cut like this. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now I'm gonna have her turn around for me. And I'm gonna bring all of the hair to the back and just kind of cross-check everything, make sure everything's looking good. Because she has a mini row in the bottom, this middle section of her hair can have a tendency of looking a lot longer. The other 2 rows that we have in are done on an angle, so it's going to naturally kind of disperse that hair around, creating a rounded shape. But we want to soften this middle area if we have a optional mini row in the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So as you can see, it's rounded in the corners, but in through here, it's a little bit straight across. So I'm just going to section in half. I'm going to position myself kind of diagonally right at her shoulder and just connect the front to that middle. And really all it's going to do is just take off this little corner. Like that. So that's going to give her a rounded shape. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, positioning myself right behind her shoulder, cutting off this corner to create that roundness. So her sculpting is complete, and we were able to add quite a bit of movement in through there and give her lots of layers that will really shine whenever we style her out.